I think there's a number of ways in which research can influence change. I think there's a very important role for research to inform many aspects of policy making, to figure out what works, what doesn't work, pilot policies, to evaluate these, and to make policies better. So research having an immediate role in that policy making. I also think research can have a very important role in terms of, say, informing opinions of the general public, if you like. Research provides evidence that brings knowledge about development, about the world in general, about policy, about the circumstances in a country to the general audience, to the general public. An important example is that of after the Second World War in Germany, think tanks were set to play a very important role in informing people about basic economic facts, for example, a general education function. Research has a very important role to unearth deprivation, for example, issues of discrimination. Not only research, journalism could do that as well, but research would provide more in-depth knowledge that is important for the audience in general. Yeah, I think a last way in which research can play and has to play a role is long-term views. Hopefully, research can influence, can lead to progressive change in terms of creating more equality, if you like, by highlighting, as I said before, research will help highlight issues of deprivation. Research helps to find ways in which that can be addressed, and as we know in the current politics, that may create opposition as well, and research won't provide a magic bullet to that, but overall will inform, even if it's a next generation, about issues around equality and how this can be addressed. That over time it can create, it can influence norms for, even if like I said, even if it's a next generation, that can promote progressive change. Right. Yes, it's a very important question, as the kind of linkages are diverse. So the positioning of researchers can also be diverse, right? They can be very close to policymakers. Good policymakers that want to rely on evidence will commission pieces of research. That the research is still independent, but is directly related to policymakers. So think tanks can be very close to those policymakers. It's also important that there are researchers wherever they are based. Individual research at universities, also at think tanks, that have more of a distance from that policymakers, because there are issues that policymakers will ignore, or they maybe not even aware of. Like I said, issues of discrimination, as we know in almost all countries, have typically been unearthed through good research of the research that were not that close to policymakers. So that independence also is very important. So for me, a diversity of a research community and in how they relate to the general audience, to the media, to policymakers is very important. I'd say two main things. As a Canadian part of the International Development Program of Canada, IDRC has supported the capacity of researchers to produce good evidence in developing countries, and that has been and remains a big challenge. The resources that exist in OECD countries, in the rich countries, for supporting research don't exist in the global south. That may be an issue of pure resources or a lack of valuation of that research, and those challenges are almost larger the poorer the countries are. In some countries in Africa, that capacity has now been built up, but there's still 20 very poor countries where that capacity does not exist. And building up that capacity is resource intensive, and that remains a large challenge, which we, with the international development community, try to contribute to. The second challenge is that building up the capacity for research by itself is resource intensive. It's difficult to do. Doing good research is time consuming. Training researchers is time consuming. A lot of the researchers are and the academic incentives of researchers are for publishing articles. Good researchers end up in journals, and that those incentives and that type of research doesn't easily translate in the kind of material, the kind of policy papers, if you like, that are directly useful for policymakers or practitioners. So to train researchers to do very good research and simultaneously make sure that how they produce the research and how they engage with their environment, that makes that research useful for policymaker is a big challenge as well. I think I think today we typically talk more about the challenges that we face, the international environment, the policy changes that we see in many countries in the south and in the north generally make us not very positive. We see more challenges than we see opportunities. But I think at the same time there are opportunities. I think it is very important that the international development community has agreed to the Sustainable Development Goals. There is still a consensus, although there's political forces that try to break that consensus, but there's still enough of a consensus that brings the international community together to say, like, yes, we witness forms of deprivation across the globe that are unacceptable, and we want to do something about that. With that, there's actually a lot of pressure, which is partly like the money that the international development community and policymakers spend. They want to see that it's spent well, and that creates the opportunities for a demand for evidence to help that policy to help the policy making and the including the international development spending more efficient. That as I said, that creates the demand for evidence. That is an opportunity for researchers to come in. As I said before, researchers also need to work hard that the way they produce their research is useful and is seen to be useful for policymakers. But I definitely see that there are those opportunities. We see in the global south that there are a large number of countries that really have developmental objectives. They believe, as we saw in China, we see it in Ethiopia now, countries where governments really are promoting a national development project, if you like, and in that process are looking for ways of doing things better. And as we see now, it's like the examples that China give are now important for African countries. Like, oh, if China, we want to know how China did this, so let's see if we can build on that, can use those examples to promote development in our own country. And there's as I said, there's a lot of opportunities there for research and researchers to support that.
Thank you very much. That was great. Was that okay? Yes. Yeah.
That's good. All right. Yeah.